Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Woven Podcast, a way of living your uniqueness. We are your hosts, Danita and Brea. I can feel it calling in the air tonight.
Yes.
Yes. I feel like it's in the air right now. There is just something so powerful and strong in the air. And I mean, there's always different things that are going on vibrationally with the earth and with the world and just with the people that surround you. But I don't know, this past week, there's been something in the air.
Okay, people are coming into their own, right? Do you think it's somewhat like, I feel like it was going to happen anyways. I feel the timing. It's like there, it's palpable. But do you think it's also connected to like the big change in this US election?
I do. People that maybe would have been closet Trump supporters are feeling this freedom to express themselves that they had never felt before. Maybe if they had shied away from sharing an opinion on food or the state of the government or the state of healthcare, just different things that state, they now feel like they're able to freely express it, that there was some sort of displeasure with it. They didn't like it.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Even with like Kennedy overlooking the health area, right? And his discussions on that, which of course relates to a lot of the things we talk about. People also hate him. And yet at the same time, decades of trying to just figure out the truth. I have a huge appreciation for him in particular and his commitment to trying to just get to the bottom of things, trying to figure out what is happening and going on. And I think that takes a lot of guts. And I think he's been slammed a lot of times for that quest into truth and what's really okay and not okay.
When you have a public figure like that, there's always going to be people that have an opinion about it one way or the other. It just gets to the point where you just have to look at it and what is being said and what you hope for and see if they match what you learn as you go, and hopefully be open-minded enough to hear what both sides are saying and then make a decision for yourself. Continuously being like, I vote blue, when there's things that red is saying that you kind of agree with, or the other way, I like red, I vote red. There's some things on blue that I like. Being able to say that openly and freely is really just making people feel good.
Well, that's what I've been noticing. It's really fascinating. I mean, and we're both Canadian, so, for better or worse, we don't vote. In a way, that's kind of nice. It's just been nice to see this all unravel and what's happening, what's going to continue to happen. But there's definitely a shift. That's what it feels like. There's a big shift. And I think everyone's feeling that no matter what side they're on. And I mean, I wish, you know what? I just wish there wasn't sides. This is what I think is so crazy about it all, is like we have just forgotten how to come together and how to figure things out. And I don't know if this administration can do that or not, but maybe they can. And that would be amazing if that is possible for all of us.
Yeah, if you can just look at the facts and say, okay, this is what I feel.
But the facts are hard to get. We don't know. We hear, right? We hear, we see, but we don't know. Everything's taken out of context. This is all of it. I'm not even talking US anymore. Things are so taken out of context on social media, especially the news, mainstream, any of it. And they are created for whatever's going to trigger our brains. And then there's the crazy algorithms behind it. We are being fed the things that lights up our brains over and over again. Every time we like it, every time we pause on a video, it knows us better and better. And the AI is working in the background. It's doing its magic. Getting to the truth, I think at some point here, we have to go away from it, even being on the outside. Like yes, it's a reflection, but we have to come back inside to get to it, don't we?
You're going to get information. You're going to get misinformation. You're going to get secondhand information. You're going to get information from your neighbor. You're going to get information from everywhere, from all sorts of external sources. And eventually it just comes down to, what do I feel? Like if I go inside and I spend time with myself, what do I feel? Where am I at currently? What is important to me? Things that are important for someone in their 60s are not going to be important for someone in their 20s. And then you try to look big picture. But at the end of the day, it's still like, okay, if I go inside, what are my morals? What are my values? What do I truly believe? And what's been impressioned upon me and what hasn't been? What's in my soul? When you are coming from that place, it makes things a little bit easier to see the information for what it is, to also look for the information that appeals to you.
This is also where we have to talk about schools a little bit, because this is where we have lost our kids. They spend more time at school than they do with their parents, right? Or with their community, with their family. They're there 8 hours a day, often, sometimes more if they're doing sports. So we're letting someone else raise our kid. We've lost that fabric of community to raise our kids. And although the teachers, which I know so many incredible teachers, are doing their best, they are just regurgitating what they know. And even if it's not about the knowledge and what they're actually sharing, the whole idea, you have to sit at a desk for this long. You have to stare at the board. There's rules. There's a million rules in every single classroom. You can use the toilet when you get your hall pass. You can do this at this particular time when we say it's recess. You better have your energy in this exact moment because we're all going to go to PE and play baseball for an hour. It's all so forced and so contrived. And I think it takes the magic away from the children, like to actually come into themselves. Who are they? How are we as children supposed to know who they are if literally their world is being organized and controlled for them every day, all day, by people that aren't even your parents, and they might not even know you that well. In some cases, of course, they know you better than your parents, those certain sad cases. You're just there in a class of 20 to 30 other kids.
With structured learning, it makes it easy. It's efficient. You're bringing people together. You get to set the rules. You get to dictate what is learned. My son, for example, he just started at a school with Montessori style learning. And in the first couple weeks, he didn't really get it. There are still tasks that need to be completed throughout the week, and they'd be put up on a board, and he had to complete them in his own time. So the whole week, he was doing his own stuff. He was playing tag and out playing soccer and like joking around with the other kids. He did not do a single thing, like maybe a few odds and ends, but he was just having the time of his life. He thought school was great. And on Friday, that's when things need to be completed by. He didn't have it all done. And so the teacher said, okay, well, we're just going to sit here and complete it. And he had to watch everyone else played and had free Friday to do whatever they wanted. For him, it highlighted there's things that are expected of me. I still have to get the tasks done. It's in my own time, though. So it was up to him to start learning how to manage his own time. The second week, he came home and he's like, I'm so overwhelmed. There's so much to do. How am I ever going to get this accomplished in this week? And now we're in our, I think, probably 5th week. And he's gotten into that, completing it on his own. So it's this sense of autonomy that he has over his own learning.
It's empowering him and to make his own decisions.
It became a part of his own personal authority.
I've read some really fascinating books on unschooling. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, if this is of interest, you might want to grab a couple books off of Amazon on unschooling. It can seem a little out there, but I think the point of it is the philosophy behind that is to honor the magic in each child. Let them be an expression of their authentic self. And that is really hard to do in our standard school system that we have. So unschooling, so some people do this at home, sometimes it's in community, but I do remember reading that it often took the kids, like if they had come from, say, a standard school system for, like, let's say 10 years, three to 6 months, if not longer, just to deprogram to like how things have to be. Like that transition itself into just like, okay, me, who am I, me being okay doing these things. And I think at first this can be really scary for parents or caretakers because it's like, oh my God, what's my kid doing? They're supposed to be doing something. Are they doing nothing? Do they know who they are? How do I support them? But I think it's a natural process that kids all have the ability to go through to find themselves. Kids are amazing. It's all right within them. The programs that we have invoked and put on them, subjugated them to through either our parenting styles, certainly the education systems, has just helped sort of made them lose sight of that knowing. So I have one kid. So some people ask, what does she do for school? Well, she kind of, she's unschooling, but what is she actually doing? She's doing the most amazing things ever. She's doing incredible volunteer work. She has an amazing job assisting a special needs kid. She's doing projects that she's interested in. She's a phenomenal writer. She's 14. She's doing these insane things that she wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And I have a kid in a sort of nature-based outdoor Montessori-esque school too. And that's also working incredibly well for him. I wish that parents had the means and the time to figure out what's best for their kid. This is the problem. So this comes back to a bigger societal problem, doesn't it? When both parents are forced to work, or you're a single mom, or whatever the situation is, or paying for any sort of private school that's even out there, or these community gatherings, even if you're homeschooling, you have to figure out how to get your kid and things. I mean, we just don't have the support in society for this.
The biggest thing that I hear from people is, well, what about your kid's future? So that is the one that I think it all goes down to fear. A fear of indoctrination. Okay, so now I'm going to homeschool. And then there's also a fear of, oh, if I don't put my kid in school, they're never going to go to university. That fear really stems from our own fears. We're transferring that fear into the ideas of our child's learning because we want the best for them. It's not a negative. It's just like our fears are coming out in that search for whatever is best for our children. A lot of this work, I think, is coming in and like seeing those fears and seeing them from what they're for and where they come from. If you really value university or a higher education, but you've been taught your whole life that that's the only way you're going to succeed in life, well, then there's going to be a fear around that. Like if my child does something different, they're not going to succeed in life.
We're teaching them to go to college or university and to start their life out, right? What we call their adult life out being in debt. Like, congratulations, you get to start out in debt. So then who are you going to listen to? How are you going to get back to your passion, your heart, when you are suddenly have to focus on making money to pay off your debt, right? So the system, again, like it's not creating that independence and that potentiality of living from your heart space right from the beginning. It's just not there. And really interesting too, I'll just say this because I don't know what each province in Canada is like, and I don't know what each state is like. Often there is this idea that you have to register your kids as either homeschooling or whatever it is that you're doing, but it's not actually a law. It's a request, right? And then when you really look into it more, you're like, what? Well, this isn't the law. And this is the same with going to university, applying to college or university. Almost all institutions say on them high school or equivalent, and they get to determine what equivalent looks like. And I think we are seeing more of a shift. And I certainly know people here that have never gone to school, incredibly bright, passionate kids that are now in university and they never stepped foot in a classroom. For anyone looking into that, you can look through, it's be like world schooling, that sort of thing, or even the unschooling path. There's something you can look into, the unschooling path to university or college. But there's so many people doing it, but we don't hear about that. It's certainly not on the news. It's not on the media. It sounds really scary. And yet these kids get to literally follow their passion their whole life and now explore. For some, that path is in college, and for others, it's not. We've been so brought up to think that if you don't do something after high school, then what are you going to do?
When I grew up, if someone was homeschooled or had any sort of alternative learning style, I'm just going to say it, you were a loser. You're totally shunned. And the family was weird. This idea that oh no, you have to go to school because then you're cool. and if you don't, this other way of living is completely unacceptable. But I think that then translates back to what we were saying before. We have followed a structure our whole life. And then you go in to make these decisions about who you're going to vote for in government and how, what you're kind of looking for, what kind of support you're looking for. And you're again looking to the government to save you. You want them to save you because they saved you in school. They helped you get a good education. They were the ones that were there for you. They paid for your teachers. That's how I get my medical care. And that support then is what you're looking for instead of looking at yourself for any sort of accountability or even what you truly want. What you really want and desire in life and how you can create.
And I don't think we can know what we truly want because we're so busy doing everything else. And we're doing it often in the format that you could say the government has created for us. But, it's more to it. It's our societal structures, right? And so how do we know? How are we supposed to come into that place? But I think that's how we started off talking about this. There's a shift now, isn't there? I know that it's just everywhere. You can feel it. It's with my clients, it's with friends, it's with family, it's in the world. It's wait, let's just pause for a moment. Do we need to live how we've been living? Do we need to do what we've been doing? Do we need to believe what we've believed in for so long?
Well, no. But maybe yes. Maybe some of it, you when you sit down with yourself and you really take the time and you go inward and you really feel it and you peel back the layers of your fear and your shame and every other guilt layer that you can imagine, when you peel that back and that's something that you still feel strongly about, well, then that's for you, right? But we were having this conversation the other night and there was a couple of people sitting around and it was like, oh, well, I have a business, so I can't share how I truly feel. And I have a business, so I can't really share how I truly feel. One way or the other, it doesn't matter because I want my business to succeed. Like I don't want to be put in a position where people aren't going to come to my business because of my thoughts or my ideas. And I was sitting there going, and I'm like, so we have businesses, but no one knows where I am in them. And I'm pretty like behind the scenes in a lot of things. And it's like on this podcast, does it matter what I say? I can say what I want. This is for me. That gave me a little bit of freedom in that moment when I was listening to this. I'm like, okay, well, I can say what I want because it's truly not going to impact me in any way. And then I had to spend like 2 days sitting with myself.
Well, because then we realize how those patterns and layers of that belief that we can't speak our truth or explore it, whether it's publicly or even with our friends or family or through our business. And that is a crazy place to be. We don't have that freedom. We do not have the freedom that I think we have, that people think they have. I just don't think we do. And I think to get to that place of freedom, first, it's inner freedom. It's to be that you can live in your authenticity, know it, speak it, live it, breathe it, and be from that place. And that can then radiate out into the world. But how can you just go and be out there in the world when we, like you said, those businesses, or even just losing your friend?
I was using a financial example because I think a lot of people can relate to that. But then there truly is also like the relationships. There is a lot with relationships where you monitor what you say. One, you don't want to feel the sensation of the other person becoming uncomfortable, or you don't want to put them in a position where they feel like they have to almost defend their position. It's very difficult to just have a conversation back and forth with people because people get really upset. That makes it hard to have those conversations.
This is what we're moving out of. This is the sum of the shift, right? Where it's like, you know what? This is where I'm at with something. And then the other person, their response isn't going to matter so much anymore, and maybe the other person is also going through a similar shift and is like, okay, yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I don't hate you. I'm not going to cut you out of my life. That would be the ideal if we can go back. And I know we've talked about that. Go back to those decades ago where we could have differences of opinions. And this didn't mean you were being shunned from society. But I think we can go to an even deeper layer. And this is that deeper layer that we are all connected and we're just different reflections of each other. And there's so much beauty in that. And just coming back to that connectedness. And I think that does parallel with some structures having to be broken and taken down. And I think that's the crumbling that's happening right now.
So you can feel it in the air.
It is in the air. It's so in the air.
For those 2 days when I had to sit with it, it was like layers of guilt, how I feel and why I feel the way that I feel. Then there was also like, okay, I'm in a financial situation, luckily, fortunately, that we've created where I almost felt guilty that I was in a position where I could say what I wanted to say and it not impact me in a financial way. Then there was shame that my family was what they were going to think of me for what I was going to say and how I was going to show up, how I was going to express myself. I have a lot of people that really believe in the education system. And so if I'm going to be talking about that, how is that going to make them feel? There's a lot about that, and it's like, how are the relationships going to change? And you just have to sit with it and then come down to like where you are with it and make your own choice.
When we really have these conversations with people. So let's just say somebody is super pro government education system. They're just like, this is the best thing we're ever doing. This is the way to do it. And then somebody else is like, unschooling, We're no government education whatsoever. When we really sit and listen to people, we realize there is so much more common ground than we think. There has to be some things wrong with the government educational system. Like there is. And also, if we're unschooling and not really listening to our kids and not really showing up for them in a way that is beneficial for them, this can also be not helpful. So somewhere in the middle there is a conversation around like the things that are easy, the things that are hard, the things that are challenging, the things that feel good, the things that don't. And I think that's the place where humanity has the potential to now move into every area. And it's so funny you talk about the financial part too. I know so many people that feel either so ashamed because they don't have enough money. So either like they're not supporting their family how they want, or they can't do the things they want. And this like the shame and the hardship that goes with that. And then I have so many people that I know that feel the exact same shame and hardship because they do have money and they can do whatever they want. And they just like, and then being okay with that. Like, how do I live in this place of where I have financial abundance? But over and over again, when I work with both these extreme groups of people and everything in between, when people shift and come into their heart, when they start living from their truth, when they start coming from that place, the gratitude for whatever is there just inside of them, they realize that they are the luckiest, most amazing people alive, whether they have the finances or they don't. Money is an energy of sorts, right? I do think some people are born into it more. There's that, and they can lose it all. It's an energy, and being ashamed of having abundance in whatever form that is, whether that's an amazing family and children, or it's friendships, or it's just your work life that you're so passionate about, or maybe you're an artist, or maybe you just have loads of money and you get to do the most incredible things. If you're living from your heart space and you get to express in that way, that's all it is. It's amazing. It's such a gift.
It's amazing, but there's shame associated with it. I've lived in both areas. They're both really hard. But then you feel guilty for thinking it's easier. When you're not living from your heart space, you still feel the same level of guilt and shame, and it's still like creeping around in the back of your head all day, every day, impacting your decisions and how you move about in the world. Until you actually shift into the heart space, it's still there. It's still like a claw inside your mind and your nervous system and your body that's showing up in different ways. You get to live that and move through it when you actually go inward. And that can be really uncomfortable. We've lived in Nassau now for 5 weeks now. Before, like, we just moved from Canada to Costa Rica full time. And this is going to be our third house that we have been attempting to live in. And so we're living in it now. And last night, I went to the broom closet, which I haven't had a broom closet in over, I don't even know how many years, 5 years, maybe. And we've lived in Airbnbs on and off. Our house in Canada is an Airbnb or a full-time rental. So it's really set up as not really a home. And there was a broom sitting there with a dustpan and a vacuum. And I thought, oh, girl, this is good. Like, I was so happy.
You have a broom closet.
I do.
Yay. This is what dreams are made of.
That was dreamy. It was dreamy.
I love that so much.
Moving into this house, there was a lot of guilt. It was a lot of guilt. We had an opportunity to live in a different space, and it was different financial contributions to live in either one. And it was like, well, which one are we going to feel better in? And it was the house that we ended up choosing. But it did require us to go inwards and be like, okay, we can live in more of an abundant state rather than a state of lack. And we had to make that choice.
So what did that look like for you? I know you talked about a little bit about those 2 days, but is there anything you can share? Because I know people listening are like, okay, what does that look like to be with those layers and what you actually went through?
My chest felt tight. My lower back was hurting a little bit. My throat really hurt. Thoughts just kept coming up into my mind. So when I would think of the house, let's call it the Pallotta house. So when I would think of the Pallotta house, it was smaller. It would be uncomfortable. I would have probably been sleeping in a bunk bed. There would be office space for my partner and I to work, but it was a really, really affordable rent. The other place, let's call it the Waka's house, it's larger. It's beautiful. It has an ocean view. It's completely the opposite of the Pallotta house. It has space for me to podcast in and for my partner to have an office and for my kids to set up their toys. And both of those things, they were sitting right there. I would think of one house. I would be like, man, that would be amazing to live in it. I looked at it and I was like, it's going to cost a lot of money. And it's also going to show that we have some wealth. We are abundant in this area. And that shame was like fear paralyzing in my body. It was like, no, I have to go live in this other house to show that I can do it, that I can live through hardship, that I can survive this way of living, and it's going to be fine for me to live in a bunk bed. I can do it. Then I thought of the other house, and it was like energetically just like a drain. And there was a lot going on there. And it felt like we were going backwards. It felt like we were really going backwards in the sense of like choosing over and over again the same pattern and the same way of living. But it felt really comfortable. We're going to spend this on rent, so then we're going to have financial freedom on the other side. And even the hardship felt comfortable. It felt natural. I'm not going to have to feel guilty for anything. It's just going to be super easy. And it also allowed me to feel like a victim. I went into and I felt like, okay, yeah, now I can be like, well, we can't really afford this stuff. Look at us. Look at how we live. We can't afford that. Then I could look for some sort of like negotiating power in different things, like play the victim card at certain points if I needed to.
I love what you talked about, like feeling into your body. That's the part where you're like, my throat and my chest. And this is what we tend to skip over. I mean, people don't even know it's available. So we say, okay, you can feel into that. Like, okay, feel into your chest. Ow, oh God, that aches. And so we might feel that. And then we're like, oh, I don't know, my heart's aching. Okay, I need some Tums. We know what it's like when we are in a deep state of grief. We know like how the throat constricts. We know that there's something happening, the sensations in our face. Maybe there's a hot flush through our body, or maybe like we feel our stomach and it's tense and tight and we can't eat. Maybe our heart is in absolute pain, but we tend to mask it. We're like, oh, there's that, or even the sore back that you mentioned. Oh yeah, the back's sore. Okay, I guess, move it, whatever, take Advil.
Acupuncture, it is like, I felt it in my throat. It was like gripping, and you could just feel like grief in my throat. Like if I was going to put a word to it, when I really went into it, it was like, it felt like grief. And that grief was just not being able to be who I am and just freely be able to be who I am and be like, yeah, cool. I live in a house on a mountain. That's great. And be okay with it and just be totally okay with it.
And so you move through it because you allowed yourself to feel the grief. So you felt the throat, right? And then you fell into the grief and you were just like in it for a couple days.
Yeah. During those couple days, I'm like, okay, like when is this over? Like, I will say like different things come up. So while you're going through it, you think like, is this going to last forever? No, actually, no. Just keep feeling and just noticing like this sensation is happening. The biggest thing that I notice is when you talk about it with people that really can hold space for you. So luckily, I have people that can hold space for me. And when I'm able to share it, it lessens, it changes, it shifts, it moves. It has this opportunity to release. Maybe it moves into a different part that it needs to go to. There is some shift and some movement. And so when I feel the shift in the movement, I know that it is being released.
We have been taught, and certainly when clients start working with me, I know this, they come in and they're like, I just want to release this. I want to release it. I want to get rid of this emotion. But the release happens naturally. Our body is designed to move through everything. But you have to first start by just feeling it. It's the awareness that it's there and like exploring that in its entirety. I mean, you spent 2 days on grief. I mean, for some people, that's like, well, what? Like, maybe I'll give myself a minute for that at the most. Like, who has time for grief? But if you can allow yourself to go into it and trust that you can get out the other side, but it does mean feeling for it could be a long period of time. It could have also just been 5 minutes or 1 minute. You don't know. And I think that's what you're saying too. You actually don't know. It's there anyways. And so I would argue that if you don't allow yourself to feel it fully, you don't have to. I mean, time is also a thing, right? It's there anyways. It's going to stay. So maybe you want to come back to it in a few days or a week or 2 months. It's there until it's fully processed, meaning you're fully aware of it. And then your body really naturally knows what to do as long as you pay attention to it.
That's what we've been doing most of our life, is just not feeling. It's always there. It's always been there. And that's where a lot of dis-ease or symptoms or whatever stuff comes up, is because it's just been sitting there forever.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Compressed down, completely ignored. It's in our cells. It's in our nervous system, and it's compacted and it's stuck. A lot of people carry around a lot of heaviness, a lot of hard emotions. People are so resilient. And so we're so used to just holding that and carrying that with us that we can still get through our days. And it's amazing. And also, there's another way to live.
I can't believe the thoughts that are running through my head, but I can't believe the amount of energy that it took to be having all that happen and for me to try to live my daily life. If everyone is out there living, holding it, and not aware of it, which most of us are, the amount of energy that's going into that you don't know about is exhausting. Like, it's actually exhausting.
It's exhausting. And this is why people are tired. And this is why people are so sick, right? Like, it is so much to hold and to carry. This is why I think like this conversation is important, because what we're saying is it's not fun to sit there and feel into these hard things. It's not fun. There are other things to do. There's probably a million other things you could do other than that. But it's inside of you. And it's going to stay inside of you until you allow yourself to be with it and be with it fully in the physical form, with the emotions, however it comes up for you. Or else we're just distracting ourselves from it. It goes in deeper. We continue to live our lives, but then we get sick and we're tired and we have these autoimmune diseases. And there's not just from this, there's other factors at play. There's a lot of stuff at play, which, we'll be talking about over the course of the months ahead anyways. Man, it's hard on our bodies. It's hard on everything. It's hard on everything.
The amazing thing that happened throughout all of that was, okay, yes, I made a decision on where I was going to live, but it also, the amount of freedom I felt in afterwards of being like, I'm going to go big. Like, I don't have to stay small. I did feel that before. And so this house comparison that I was talking about was this idea of like, you have to stay small, stay humble, hardship. In the spiritual world, if we want to talk about that, can you live in abundance or do you have to live in hardship? Because I've seen both and I've witnessed both. And, like there's different ideas behind both. For people that take me seriously in this world, I must live like small and have hardship and really face those challenges. And I can't live in a house and sleep in a real bed and like have a broom closet. I'm making a joke of it, but it really wasn't a joke for me. Like that really was how I felt. It felt like, are people going to be able to take me seriously if I'm living with abundance around me, with my family and with my friends and with like how I live my life and create the world around me and even how I speak. So I felt like I had to speak small, how I should hold myself in like composure and different, and like what I should share and what I shouldn't share. Share what you want and just be who you are. That is what is going to be me. I'm going to have conversations with people as me. It took like that whole scenario to go one layer deeper. So I've been working on that. It was just one more layer peeling off of just the allowance of be who you are, speak your mind.
And the world needs you. And I think this is the thing, like, this is the beauty of it. When people come into this themselves and they are willing to express that to the world, we follow people or we obsess with people, different people on social media that might go completely against our ideals or our morals or whatever. But I know I appreciate people talking about things that I completely disagree with. But when it's their truth and they're expressing it as them in their whatever way that is, you love them. We are so attracted to people that are just being themselves. Like, we love that. This is what we need. And if everyone could just be themselves fully and completely, unabashedly, unashamed, all those things, I mean, I'm happy you're here.
Well, me too. I'm happy I'm showing up forever, the rest of my life.
Yeah, this is why we're here, right?
Yeah. I never really appreciated like a social media manager job. Like that was not something that I ever strived towards. A lot of people enjoy it. A lot of people like it, but content creation, editing, technical computer work, that is not a part of my skill set or anything that I've ever really wanted to do, I would say, but it is a part of this. It took a lot of going into myself to be like, it's okay that you're editing content, writing text for a podcast or for, a community that we're creating, just all that kind of stuff. It wasn't easy. And it felt like I was using the skills that I'd created over my life for something that I didn't even want to do. We're going to double down. You're going to do it more.
How does it feel?
And it feels like I'm producing my own life. And, but it was like that shift of like, no, I'm producing my own life. producing it the way that I want.
I feel like you're having some fun now.
Yeah. Yes, I am having a lot more fun. People find me a lot more relatable. I'm not doing it on purpose. There is an attraction to that wasn't there before. I don't even think there was an attraction as much before. It was like people looking to me for an answer because I was giving advice. So then they wanted an answer from me. And if the answer coincided with what they needed in that moment, then great. Then I was someone that they could look to. Now it feels a lot different. It's like people are just connected and interested in like, what is going on?
I love it. I love that you're here.
Yeah, thanks.
Full expression Danita in the house.
Yes.
In the bigger house, not the small house. I mean, I'm so happy you're in this house because now I get to do ocean sunsets. I'm a big fan.
I'm a big fan too. This is hard for me to share. This is like one more of those steps, we've talked about, just one more.
And these are the conversations that like I wish were available to me 20, 30 years ago when I was starting down this path. If I could have heard this kind of conversation, that would have helped tremendously. It's a gift to be able to speak about these processes that we're all going through. We're all going through. For those that aren't and are like, what the hell are you guys talking about? It does just start with feeling. It starts with feeling what's inside. And I know that can sound so abstract for a while. And I totally get that too. That's where it starts. And it can start as simple as just getting used to being alone, being by yourself, being in silence, or like being in nature. Like, I don't mean, but without the distractions, and then being curious about what's there, what's inside of ourselves. And that's it. There's actually great simplicity in this and in what we're talking about. It just is so challenging because our society isn't set up to hold this and we don't learn about this.
Even just noticing the thing, like, ooh, pain in my neck. Maybe I'm not going to feel it. Maybe I'm going to feel it. I don't know. But, oh yeah, there's a pain. Okay, that's enough for now. Now I know that it's there.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. We don't have to go into it every time. And then the curiosity is there. And then you can continue to notice. And this is the thing, we have this choice and we have the freedom. We can choose when we're going to go into what's there, right? Like we don't have to do it at 1 p.m. in our office or our jobs or with our families around, right? And maybe this means committing to waking up a little bit earlier, or maybe it means to not watching, Netflix at night or whatever. Like maybe there are some shifts we start to make in our life where we give ourselves some space to be with ourselves. So simplicity, space, noticing, maybe just starting with a bit of gentle awareness.
Ooh, it sounds like we're going into a meditation. Oh my gosh. I'm ready for it. Brea, take me in. Something that we're going to talk about is meditation. We're going to talk about this soon. Stay tuned, everyone, for meditation and for some other stuff that we're coming up with. That's a part of our next step, is how to bring on different people that we want to talk to. We're going to have chats with like really interesting people, but then also with experts in their field, and then also ask me anythings. Whereas like we know that there's a lot of people that are listening that have questions. Like this is not really easy stuff to always get what we're talking about. And there's a lot of questions. If you want to DM me on social media, or you can go to my website and enter in a question. We are happy to answer questions that come our way, because I do feel like there's questions that people have that are out there, and we're happy to answer them. Chat soon.
Thanks, everybody. Love you guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Self-Woven. You can find us on our website, selfwoven.com, to learn more about our community, where we link people embracing their unrefined, unpolished, and unrestricted way of living. Those who are looking to explore their unique energetic, spiritual, and physical essence. This is where we go deeper and share opinions and celebrate our deeper layered experiences, and where we connect in embracing authenticity, deepening our connection to ourselves and the world around us. And also, here is our disclaimer that this information shared is our opinions and experiences and is not medical advice. There has been no client relationship established, and the use of this information is at the user's own risk and does not substitute for any mental health or medical diagnosis or treatments.